They'd always say like, "Oh, how's it going?" or "Oh, the weather," something about the weather, or make some complaint. And usually I had no idea what they were saying, but because I was writing and so I'd just laugh or smile or something and pretend I understood. So that helped with small talk, like because over like every day, it happened pretty much every day. So I would slowly get into talking about the weather, being able to say hello, how are you, saying goodbye, those small things. It was terrifying, honestly. I was really, really nervous every time I went into a shop or walked down the street because people would talk to you and you wouldn't understand what they were saying. And I just had to push myself through it. So I would be really scared to go to the supermarket because at the checkout, they would ask, now I know what they were saying. They were saying, do you have a loyalty card?
It
But
happened to me.
yeah,
And I didn't understand. I always said, no gracias, no gracias. And that was
yeah,
not the answer they wanted to hear.
yeah. This is the thing, and I thought I understood cards like tarjeta, so I was thinking, are they asking me if I want to pay with card? So I'd be like, yes, and then they'd say, okay, what's the card number? And I would say, I don't, what number? And then the worst thing is there's always queues in Argentinian supermarkets, and there's always people in the queue like tutting and saying, why is this taking so long? So I got just terrified to go into supermarkets because it took me months to figure out what this question was at the end. And then they go in to start explaining it. You don't understand a word, but it was a bit by bit thing. So you learn how to say hello, how are you, and then talk a bit about the weather. And then every time you speak to someone, you pick up a new couple of words. You can get a little bit longer through the conversation. If you throw yourself into enough situations all the time when you have no choice but to speak the language or listen to it, eventually you pick up actually quite a lot. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of discomfort.
And at least when you were talking about the card, at least you didn't say your credit card numbers. Imagine that.
No, but I
What's
wouldn't
your
even
credit
know
card
how
number?
to.
Oh, you wouldn't be able. Okay. At least you're safe on that department. At least you're not going to putting yourself on risk.
Yeah. Thank God.
So it's interesting that you were like going to a lot of elevators apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived on the 16th floor of this
God.
really tall.
Okay.
Right, there was a really old building, so the elevator was really slow. So I was in there for a long time with these people making small talk.
Oh, that explains it. Because when I lived there, I lived like on the first floor, and my office was on the first floor too. So no elevators at all for me.
And
They
also,
love
like,
talking in elevators. In
being
England, no one does. In England, it's just silence, awkward silence in the lift. But in Argentina, it's always conversation.
It's incredible that you stand inside an elevator for that much time to have not basically full conversation, like philosophical conversation, but having like actual small talk. Because like nine times out of 10, like doesn't it last like what 30 seconds most? Like
The
Yeah.
elevators,
if the
no.
elevator is slow, like how
Yeah,
long are
it's
you
just
staying?
enough time. It's just enough time to have a short conversation, but for it to not get awkward if you don't understand what the person's saying. It's kind of a good snip. It's just a quick snippet of. I mean, there were lots of situations like that, but that's the one that stands out because I remember being nervous every time I was getting in the elevator because I knew if someone else walked in, they were going to start talking to me.
And it was something that I want to ask is that like since you've been to this many situations of like being able to pick up these things, like did you intentionally shape your environment to learn faster as fast as possible, or like your progress like came around naturally?
I purposely shaped my environment. I would say I wouldn't speak English, or I wouldn't make friends with English people. Or it's not that I wouldn't make friends. I did make English friends, but I would purposely try and do things. So I joined a football team. I would just lie and say that I spoke Spanish or say that I understood, even if I didn't. I would just never accept that I couldn't speak Spanish. So that helped because every time people would say, do you want to speak in English or Spanish? They're like, yeah, Spanish, obviously. And then I wouldn't understand a word they said, obviously. But it just helped somehow. Along the way, I just did it enough that it helped.
It's always a good base for a new friendship, just lying.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I love that. We should put
Yeah,
that on a
because you really-
poster.
It doesn't matter what they say. You can't get into an argument because you have no idea what they're saying. They just see you as the nice guy who always smiling and agreeing no matter what.
And I mean, if you were in a football club, it's like, hey, this guy knows how to kick, so we're gonna keep him.
Yeah. It actually really helps if you go to something like football, or for me it was dancing, and you don't speak the language. You can really just look at the others, what they're doing, and just like imitate. So that helps also. And then step by step, you will learn a bit about what the parts of the body are called, what left is, what right is, forward, backwards, like all these things you learn just on the go.
I do this with cooking. For me, it's cooking. I look like at recipes from like different languages, and I try to basically talk like I'm being recorded and making a YouTube short, even though I'm not. I'm just like alone in my room, just like looking like an idiot. But I do. I think it's a very good way to shadow. And I used to shadow like speak all of other YouTubers, like gaming YouTubers. I would talk like them. And like everybody would
Nice.
be like, why are you talking like that, man? It's like you're weird. But
Talking on the subject of hobbies, which is quite interesting, but I don't know if you guys found this, but you end up with a very specific vocabulary base. So, for example, I could talk about football and all of the different positions and commands and everything, but if someone asked me a subject about food, I wouldn't be able to have one sentence of conversation. So you end up with like a very specific vocabulary base.
yeah, let's just say that when you find an elevator on the street,
Yeah,
oh shit, I have to go inside that elevator and talk about football with
yeah,
you.
yeah. Any elevator conversations, I'm just amazing. But ask me about politics, no.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that people inside elevators don't ask you about politics.
No,
It's kind of
no,
weird. I think football is a very safe thing to
Yeah.
talk about. Hey, did you see that game last night? Oh, the
Exactly.
coach was an asshole.
There's
Yeah,
Sorry.
go on.
No, I was going to say there's one big thing that I just popped into my mind that I didn't mention, but it was music. So I had a full playlist of Argentinian songs, and I would literally sit in my room and read the lyrics as the music's playing and learn the lyrics to all of these Argentinian songs, and that really helped. I think that's probably the biggest thing that helped me with my pronunciation, my vocabulary, being able to speak quickly, and also helped me integrate into the country, because if I was in a bar and a famous Argentinian song came on, I would know all the lyrics. People would think it's weird because I didn't speak Spanish very well, and I'm not Argentinian, but I would know like this old Argentinian folk song or whatever. And but it helped
that in a
them.
bar.
Yeah, or whatever it was. It would be like some rock national or the national rock or something like that, and it would help them see me as less of a tourist. I think it helped me integrate into different friendship groups, but also I'd end up talking a bit like a poet because I would be quoting song lyrics with the only words I knew.
It sounds amazing, honestly. Yeah.
And talking actually about like integrating better and being perceived less like a tourist, was there a turning point for you when it felt like actually speaking in the language, less like learning the language?
Yeah, I don't know if I can think of like a specific moment, but it happened something like this. Someone would come up to me on the street and say something, and I would just realize that I understood what they were saying and I could respond. And there was just a moment like that when someone just came up and started talking to me, and I just realized that we're having a conversation in Spanish and I'm not really having to think about it. And it was amazing. I mean, this was months and months after I arrived. So months and months of awkward not being able to understand. But there was definitely a turning point. So, and it happened more. I was there during the pandemic. So I was there 9 months before the pandemic started, and then a year and a half or a year during the pandemic, during lockdown. And during lockdown, a lot of the expats left and went back to, a lot of the European expats and American expats went back to their countries, and I stayed, and that helped in a way, because I was kind of like this random English guy for some reason who was like staying in lockdown in Buenos Aires, and people started inviting me to things. I think they felt bad for me, so a lot of families were starting to like try and adopt me and say, oh, you should come over for dinner, because I was living on my own. I mean, I was fine, but I didn't need it to be adopted or anything. But I think that was the moment where I became much more. I really felt like it was starting to feel like home, and I really wasn't ready to leave. So at some point, the British government did send a plane to take all the English people in Argentina back to England, and they offered me a seat on it, and I turned it down. Which my family were obviously really, really, really angry about. But I turned it down, and I stayed for another 9 months until the borders opened again, and then I did leave. But I think that whole period, just being there during that, it made it, because we were kind of like jointly going through something. So that's when I felt like I was mostly integrated into the country.
That's beautiful. Like, I think you should make that into a script and pitch it as a movie. I'm not even joking. Like, you have British governments coming, they're like, we're gonna take you away, you're gonna go back to Britain.
I think I make it sound more dramatic than it actually was.
I mean, easily, I would watch that movie. It's incredible. Like this story is it's kind of like the that point where like a lot of language learners strive to go to that level of confidence where they can reject governments validated return. Sorry, that I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm focusing about that part, but
Yes.
And being adopted to Argentinian
and
families.
being adopted to Argentinian family. That's a whole spin-off series about that.
Yeah.
You can make a nice sitcom about it.
It could be like a little indie film or something. I'm not sure. It's such a unique idea, but
Oh,
know,
there's money there. I
yeah.
we get on
Okay.
on
If maybe Tandem can fund it, and then.
Tandem movie.
But instead of I learned all of my languages using Tandem. It would have been easier.
Yeah, it's just.
I wish I had Tandem back then.